Something astonishing is happening in Europe. Scholars are calling it a civilizational inflection point, that historical moment when the accumulated weight of elite failure, cultural displacement, and democratic betrayal becomes so total, so undeniable, and so personal to so many millions of ordinary people simultaneously that the entire political order cracks and something new forces its way through. We're living inside one of those moments right now, not approaching one, not watching one develop from a safe analytical distance. No, we are inside it. And the evidence is arriving so fast from so many different countries and so many different languages that even the most committed defenders of the old order are running out of ways to explain it away. Stick with me to the very end of this video because we're about to find out that this isn't a simple protest. This isn't a reactionary backlash. What we're witnessing on both sides of the Atlantic is a civilizational correction, and it's one that's just getting started. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, a quick programming note. Something very special is coming this summer for the Turley Talks community, and Atlanta is going to be the place to be. I can't share all the details just yet, but the patriots who are on our newsletter list will be the first to know. So scan the QR code below and get signed up right now. All right, let's dive right in here, gang.
This is a Fox News election alert. Pennsylvania goes to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president of the United States.
Few pundits recognize how historic, how absolutely earth-shattering that moment in 2016 actually was. Since then, it's simply undeniable that the world has changed and changed dramatically. And nowhere are we seeing the ripple effects of that Trump victory than in the UK. Though just a few years old, Nigel Farage's Reform UK has proven that a populist movement can go from protest to power in a democratic system that was specifically designed to prevent exactly that kind of populist disruption. When Nigel Farage founded the modern incarnation of Reform UK just literally a few years ago, the party had 0 council seats, 0 members of parliament with any real influence, and 0 control over any level of government anywhere in the country. 0. The establishment laughed. The commentators sneered. The BBC ran segments explaining why Farage could never win. And then, May 8th, Reform UK gained over 1,400 council seats in a single night. They took control of 14 local councils and they wiped Labour, the governing party of Prime Minister Keir Starmer, out of communities that Labour had dominated since before the Second World War. And what we saw on that night is virtually the same phenomenon we witnessed back in that night in November of 2016. The white working class overwhelmingly defected from the center left that they had been voting for decades and aligned themselves en masse with the new populist right. We first saw this realignment, in fact, with the original Brexit vote in June of that year, where regions that were solidly Labour, the UK's center-left party, these areas of the country that were solidly Labour were also the ones most likely to vote to leave the EU. All the while, their Labour members of parliament did everything they possibly could to keep the UK in the EU. And so it really was only a matter of time before so much of Labour's loyal constituents would inevitably defect precisely because labor had betrayed any justification for that loyalty. And in the same way here in the United States, we saw nearly 200 counties in states like Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio that had voted Democrat in every single election for the last 3 decades suddenly defect and vote overwhelmingly for Trump. Again, just a few weeks ago, Wales, which had never in its entire democratic history elected anything other than a Labour government, saw Labour lose power for the first time there ever. And a major national poll taken right after these results showed Reform UK on course to win 271 parliamentary seats in a general election were it held tomorrow, enough to make Nigel Farage Prime Minister. That is what proof of concept looks like. In fact, it's the very definition of proof of concept. And here's what most people still don't understand about the British story. The speed of it is what's truly staggering. Reform UK went from 5 members of parliament to being on the doorstep of forming a government in less than 2 years. No political movement in modern British history has ever moved that fast. Not Thatcher, not Blair, not anyone. And the reason it moved that fast is not Farage's charisma alone, formidable as that is. It's because the conditions were so extreme, the public anger so deep, the establishment failure so total that when a credible alternative finally presented itself, the voters didn't walk toward it, they ran. They ran because they had been waiting for someone to run to, and that same desperation, that same depth of abandonment exists in every major country in Europe today. Right now, across the entire continent, the political movements that are rising to power are the ones that share Donald Trump's worldview. His diagnosis of what went wrong, his prescription for how to fix it, his absolute contempt for the globalist establishment that built the post-1945 order and then forgot to ask ordinary people whether they actually wanted to live inside it. Case in point, these are scenes coming out of the nation of Spain in the city of Madrid. Over the weekend, tens of thousands of Spaniards poured into the streets in what organizers called the March for Dignity, demanding the immediate resignation of Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. Speakers from the Conservative People's Party and the populist right Vox Party fired up the crowds to demand the immediate resignation of Sanchez, who is one of the most aggressively globalist, anti-Trump, anti-American socialist leaders in all of Europe. The man who refused to allow the United States to use our own military bases on Spanish soil for refueling operations. The Spanish people are rising up en masse. Again, case in point, the Vox Party is just a few years old, and yet it has surged to either, depending on the poll, either the second or third most popular party in the entire nation. But that's nothing compared to what's happening in France and Italy. This is what has the globalists absolutely panicked. But first, right now, an estimated 31 million Americans are taking GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. But as more people start using them, more concerns are starting to surface as well. In just the past few months alone, lawsuits tied to these drugs have nearly doubled in the United States, jumping from around 2,000 cases at the beginning of the year to nearly 4,000 today. I mean, look at these celebrities who succumb to what's called Ozempic face. And that doesn't look like the picture of health to me. Now, some of these side effects could be much more serious, including stomach paralysis, organ death, anxiety, depression, and sudden vision loss. Some people are even reportedly dying. For many people, weight gain may have less to do with willpower and more to do with what's happening in your gut. Researchers are learning more every year about how much the gut microbiome impacts things like cravings, bloating, inflammation, digestion, mood, energy levels, and long-term weight management. So instead of simply slowing the digestive system down, many people are now looking for ways to actually support their gut naturally. And that's one reason kimchi has gotten so much attention of late. Kimchi has 900 plus beneficial probiotics that help support digestion, reduce bloating, improve regularity, and promote a healthier gut environment naturally. Some studies have even pointed to kimchi's remarkable ability to support healthy body composition. In one preclinical study, researchers observed body fat reductions of up to 31.8%. Now, the problem is that most people simply aren't eating enough kimchi consistently to see meaningful results. So that's why Brightcore created Kimchi One, with over 900 plus strains of beneficial bacteria that deliver all the benefits of real kimchi in convenient capsules. No taste, no smell, non-GMO, and 100% made right here in the USA. Today, you can try Kimchi One by clicking the link below for 25% off your order, or for the best deal available, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off plus free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233. In Italy, Giorgia Meloni became prime minister in October 2022, leading a coalition the entire European commentariat said was too extreme, too radical, too dangerous to be trusted with power. The markets were supposed to collapse. Italy's partners were supposed to isolate her. The country was supposed to descend into chaos. None of it happened. In fact, quite the opposite. Meloni governed, maintained NATO commitments, managed the economy, defied every EU threat on immigration fiscal policy, and built a direct personal relationship with Donald Trump that made her the most important European ally in the entire Trump White House. France is where the next explosion is coming. And when it arrives, it's going to shake the Western world in a way nothing since Brexit has managed to come close to. Because Marine Le Pen or her chosen successor, Jordan Bardella, are now the overwhelming favorites to win the next French presidential election. And France is not just any country. France has an independent nuclear deterrent. France has a permanent UN Security Council veto. France has the largest conventional military in the European continent and stands as one of the two founding pillars of the EU itself. A national rally president in the Élysée Palace would not merely change French politics, it rewrites the entire power architecture of the Western world. Germany is where the story becomes most historically charged, because Germany is the country. The entire post-1945 order was specifically designed to contain and rehabilitate. And today, the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, is now the largest opposition party in the German parliament, achieving this despite being excluded from every coalition, despite establishment attempts to literally ban it outright, and despite being labeled extremist by its own government's intelligence services. And every time the establishment turned up the pressure, the AfD's polls went up. Right now, as we speak, the AfD is consistently polling as the number one most popular party in all of Germany. And then, of course, there is Hungary, where the great Viktor Orban has been the blueprint all along. 4 consecutive supermajority victories, a rewritten constitution, 16 years of continuing governance against the full institutional weight of the European Union and the personal validation of Donald Trump himself. Even his successor, Peter Magyar, ran to the right of Orban when it came to immigration. Orban may have lost the last election, but Orbanism is a permanent part of Hungarian politics. And we could go on and on and on. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, Jimmie Åkesson in Sweden, Karol Nawrocki, the president of Poland, place after place after place. You put all these countries side by side, and the civilizational pattern is impossible to deny. The same 3 drivers every time: uncontrolled immigration, that communities never consented to, economic systems that enrich the credentialed class while delivering managed decline to everyone else, and an establishment that responded to legitimate anger with condescension, I should say, and accusation rather than solutions. And Trump's 2024 victory added one final accelerant, because it proved beyond any reasonable doubt that the full arsenal of establishment power, prosecution, media suppression, institutional opposition could be deployed simultaneously against a populist leader, and that institutional power still loses. We just saw it with John Cornyn here in our Texas primaries, right? That sent one message to every movement from London to Madrid to Berlin: keep going. Different faces, different languages, different national grievances, but the same civilizational contract with the same voters. I see what they did to you, and I'm going to build something that actually works for you. That contract is the most powerful political force in the Western world, and it all started with Donald Trump.